Thank you for joining us on how to learn to embed your rubric. One thing I want to point out is that not all rubrics are the same, so pay particular attention to the rubric used for your class and your assignment. We're going to begin by locating the discussion forum rubric within the course information tab. Under the assignment guidelines and rubrics folder, access your undergraduate discussion board rubric. This is the file that we will be utilizing to set up our rubric. I have now split my screen so that you can see both the rubric within the Word document and the rubric that we're going to set up. Under the Course Tools tab, scroll down to Rubrics and select. There are a number of rubrics listed here in the sample course, but for the purposes of this assignment, we are going to create a new rubric. Once you're within this section, you are first going to choose a rubric name. You can choose a description if you'd like to help distinguish different rubrics. We're going to pay particular attention to the rubric detail section. All of these different boxes will correspond to a box within the Word document. As you can see, there are critical elements, which will be the same thing as criteria, and the levels of achievement will follow the exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, not evident. To edit this information, you'll choose the drop-down arrow. We want it to correspond to the rubric in the Word document, so change comprehension and the weight to 40%. That will correspond to the value amount within the rubric, 40%. Where it says novice, we're going to change that to exemplary. Because the rubric in this example is on a point range instead of a percentage, you have that option up under rubric type. So point range, it is 36 to 40 points, and then you're going to utilize the information within the rubric box to fill in that section. If you need to add a row or add a column, because there are 4 rows and 4 columns within this rubric, and it's only a 3x3 within this, then you're going to add them using the add row and add column options. Again, you're going to change each of these elements to make sure they match up with the rubric in the document. So organization will be timeliness, grammar will be engagement. You'll add a row, and that will be writing mechanics. Under the levels of achievement, you'll have exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, and not evident will be added through another column. This is an example of a completed rubric. Obviously, this one will not match this because it's another example, but you get the idea. All of the information is filled in, the points are given, the percentages. We are now within Gradebook, and I'm going to show you how to add a rubric to an assignment. Scroll under the discussion, Form 1, and choose the Edit Column Information. If you scroll halfway down, there will be an associated rubrics option. Select Add Rubric. You're going to select the rubric that we just created, or you could create a new rubric. Choose Undergraduate Rubric and choose Submit. Once the rubric is set here, you'll need to change the option Show Rubric to Students to Yes with rubric scores. You want them to be able to see the scores they earned for each section. Then you're going to choose Submit. We are now within the discussion board, and you'll see all the different forums. I want to point out that I'm going to avoid showing you any student information to protect their privacy. Under the Module 5 discussion, you're going to choose the drop-down and select Grade. I've limited the screen, so all you're really going to be focusing on is the grade option over on the right. You're going to select this option for the student that you're grading at the moment. This is the typical grading box that you're going to see when you're filling in feedback for the student. In this feedback section, you may want to include a note, see feedback in rubric. You might also tell them, please pay attention to the specific feedback I offered in the discussion rubric. This will just direct them to this discussion rubric above. This link is the new change. Once you select that rubric, the information is populated below. You have several options. First, you may choose Show Descriptions. This will explain the content for each different element so that you can assure to give your students the correct points. You also have an option to Show Feedback. That will populate a feedback box under each criteria. We're going to provide the student a few grades. Let's assume that their work was exemplary. You have the option to choose different percentages based on the degree of an exemplary assignment they provide. You'll also want to share specific examples of how they met this exemplary grade. Timeliness. They submitted their post by Thursday midnight. Full credit. Engagement. They responded to multiple students. Again, you'll want to add feedback highlighting the students that they responded to or perhaps content that they provided to other students. Writing mechanics. Let's assume they had multiple APA errors and some grammatical errors, so we're only going to give them a proficient. Again, in the feedback area, you need to highlight the elements that they were missing. As you can see, the score was populated for you so that you don't have to go back and do that. And finally, provide a summative feedback assessment at the bottom. You're then going to save the rubric. Once the rubric is saved, the score will be generated in this section as well. And then you're going to choose Submit. Then you may move on to the next student. Thank you so much for your time. This concludes our example of how to embed a rubric.